A barrier to gathering evidence that we briefly talked about was the occupational health and safety risks. So you've arrived at the workplace, the resources are available, the candidate's there, and you're there. Everything is rocking, and you've started assessing the candidate, and you notice that he's behaving irresponsibly in the workplace. He's behaving really, really unsafely. So I've just given you a fun little clip there, that Arctic Monkeys, you know, music embedded over the top of the top 10 forklift accidents. But let's just have a look. Let's have a look without the music, without the humour. Just imagine this was our candidate, John. It's not. But just imagine he gets on board, he wants to impress you, you're there to assess him, he wants to show you his skill on a forklift. And he does a donut for you. Okay, let's watch him fling off again. Right, that's a nasty workplace injury. Now you're there to assess knowledge, you're there to assess skill, but competency is also about attitude. So unless your candidate's got a safe attitude to work, unless they're following the WHS policies of the workplace and following WHS legislation, there is no way in the world that candidate could be made competent. Not only that, that's when you start to get into other legislation as well. I mean, that type of behaviour would be instant dismissal. In most workplaces, that would be no warnings, instant dismissal for that. Let's have a look, though, from the OH&S legislation. So there's a Work Health and Safety Act of 2012, and that is a national act. Most states are on board with it, and what I'm going to do is just use this as the benchmark. You can actually go there as the link if you'd like to have a look at yourself. We're going to look at the duty of care that must be upheld by employees. So obviously that candidate would be an employee. It could have been a contractor, and that's fine. You might be a contractor contracted to an RTO. You know, you've got to employ your own duty of care and look at the duty of care of your candidate. So workers must take reasonable care for their own health and safety, and take reasonable care that their actions or omissions do not adversely affect the health and safety of others. Okay, so we're now talking beyond the fact that he or she isn't going to be competent because of his attitude. We've got some legislative requirements here as well. So as the assessor, you cease the assessment immediately, you give the immediate feedback. Absolutely no way, won't be giving you your qualification, won't be giving you your licence, and will certainly be very strong in my written feedback to that effect. And you know, you would definitely also have to contact the employer, and you would have to let your RTO know. I mean, this is a serious breach of duty of care. Okay? So let's just have a little look at a risk assessment form. And you could fill out your RTO's risk assessment form, and then your RTO could send it through to the workplace. You know, you have no responsibility to be involved in a conflict directly yourself. You can just get the heck out of there, contact your RTO, and let the RTO deal with it face to face with the organisation. If that's the type of work culture, just pack up and go. So you would fill out a risk assessment form. It might be that the organisation forwards their own risk assessment form that you would have to sign and say that you've witnessed. But let's just have a look here. So if that event had occurred, you're looking at a matrix with the likelihood of injury and the consequence of injury. Well, it actually occurred. So we're already now at least in a medium to high risk. So we can hover our little circle over there. Now we have to look at the consequence. So what level of injury might have been incurred here? Now, we don't know what he's hit. We don't know if he's hit a concrete pole and made himself a paraplegic. We don't know if he's fallen on his neck and made himself a paraplegic or a quadriplegic, but it's quite likely that, you know, more than 7 days lost time injury has occurred, or even permanent disability or death. So that is an extreme high risk, an extreme risk, okay? So then you have to look at your controls. So we've actually said that it is more than likely, or it's quite likely, that the consequence could be permanent disability or death because of the hazardous behaviour that that employee was exhibiting. So then we look at the control. Now, if the events occurred, I guess it's all too late. But if you've seen previous footage of this candidate, or if you've been given a heads up that this is the type of nonsense that's occurring, you know, then you would be just locking yourself out of the area. So you'd remove yourself from the environment. Who's to say he wouldn't have come off that forklift and bailed you up? So, you know, you could have been quite injured there as well. So look, that is an extreme situation. It's not going to be a common situation. A little bit dramatic. Certainly gave us a chance to have a little bit of humour there with the Arctic Monkeys song and the YouTube clip of the forklift accidents. Bit of a breather there for you. But, you know, hazards in the workplace. We've looked at John. We've looked at the pallet coming off into the forklift area, and if it's a low risk, which means that it's not going to necessarily cause any injury, it might just be a little bit of first aid. If a forklift bumped into an empty pallet, okay, it's probably likely to occur, so it's still medium. We really don't need it to happen. We can avoid it happening. So, you know, you would communicate that, you would raise a request to have somebody move it. You know, you would follow your RTO's procedure, or you would follow the workplace procedure for that. Okay, so if it was slightly in the way, it's quite unlikely. You could probably go around it, so you could attend to it straight away. If it weighed less than 15 kilos, perhaps the employee is able to move it, so, you know, the assessment can progress. But the main purpose of this is to show you how to fill out one of these forms. You would then, excuse me, need to put your full name and sign it, and the date that you completed the form. Okay, so you're explaining your concern of risk, so you're explaining the hazardous behaviour or the hazard that you identified in the workplace, and then you're selecting one of these control measures.